But the burning question I wanted to make sure I ask you about, because I'm still clinging to this idea. I'm going to tease out the secret from you of how to write humor. It's going to happen. If you're writing 1,000 words a day and you're doing 10 to 12 chapters, theoretically, even if you're taking weekends off, 2 weeks in, you've got a draft, right? But if it's taken 30 days, there's something else that's happening. Is it just that heavy revision? What else is happening?
It's that heavy revision. Yeah. I mean, well, what I like to do, and I think other authors do this too, is after I finish a rough draft of something, I like to put it aside for at least a couple of days so that my brain sort of forgets about it a little bit. So that way, when I pick it up again and read it, it feels fresh. And when kids ask me for a writing tip, I say, here's the tip that I use that probably will work for you. When you write something, okay, look at it and read it out loud. And while you're reading it out loud, here's the secret. Here's the secret, Rob.
Okay, I'm leaning forward. I'm ready.
Okay, me too. Pretend that you're somebody else. Pretend that you're a stranger. Pretend that you're a teacher or your friend. And while you're reading what you wrote, almost through somebody else's eyes, you could see the mistakes that you made, and you could see how you could make your writing better or funnier or whatever. And that's what I do in my writing. I read it again, pretending that I'm somebody else. And that's the secret.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to get myself a carton of cigarettes and a pack of donuts. I'm going to pretend I'm Dick Cheney. The other question about humor I wanted to ask you, and then we'll move on. But I wanted to ask, because you're writing about teachers and figures of authority, but then you're turning around and you're doing school visits. What's that fine line that you're walking there between you want to make fun and I assume you want to be on the kids side. If you got to pick between the kids and the faculty for the kids book, you want the kids more than you want to be on the side of the faculty. But have you crossed that line where you said something that was a little bit too true about a particular profession and like a principal, and now a principal's giving you a sideways look at school?
Interesting. I actually, and I think every author gets a certain amount of flack. You know, as much as you try and please everybody, there's always going to be people who are offended by something that you've written, no matter how sanitized it is, you know. And there are topics that I've thought were completely innocuous, and then I get an email from somebody saying, I was deeply offended by that thing you wrote on page 64 of, you know, blah, blah, blah. And just last week it happened to me. I got an email from somebody who complained that I had written a character was walking around like he was drunk. And the characters, the person who was complaining said, I don't want my 3rd and 5th graders to know about being drunk. That has no place in a children's book, you know? And I thought, what's the big deal? I mean, everybody from all ages knows that alcohol exists, and then grown-ups sometimes drink it, and that they behave in unusual ways. But this woman was deeply offended by that. And I've had other people who were offended by the word hate. You know, each My Weird School book starts off with the line, my name is AJ and I hate something, school or spiders or whatever. And people would say, well, you use the word hate in a book, it's promoting hatred. And I'm thinking like, come on, you know.
Just the general concept is being promoted.
Yes. And I don't know if you have found this, but throughout the course of my career, I have found that stuff that I wrote 20 or 30 years ago, I shouldn't say 30, 20 years ago, is no longer acceptable today, you know. And you have to be very careful that, like, it's a fine line between teasing and bullying, for instance. You know, the characters in My Weird School tease each other a lot. But I have to make sure that they don't bully each other, because bullying is, you know, verboten. What other? I made a note. Oh, I have to be very careful about violence. You know, what else? Careful about things like that. And you know, I have not found that I've ever lost a school visit because someone thought that my books were offensive. but it's possible that I lost school visits and didn't know it because they never called me at all.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know, I suppose.
You have to be very careful about what you write, and no matter how careful you are, there's still going to be someone who's offended by something. I've had people try to ban my weird school from a whole school system because they thought just AJ's attitude was disrespectful to grown-ups.
Oh, were there no students in that school who were disrespectful to students that the children might relate to?
I think just the kids in my books were disrespectful, and they didn't want the kids in their schools to read that kind of material. It happens.
Well, I always want to look at the counter argument, because I've talked with a number of editors and authors now that are employing things like sensitivity readers for issues that you want to be sensitive about. You want to make sure that you're presenting a culture accurately. If you're writing about somebody who's not you, maybe go reach out to a member of that community, get their take on it, and do some listening and not just talking. I think all of that is admirable. But I also think that if you want to stand up and do something artistic of any kind, sooner or later, one, you're going to make a mistake. God knows that happens to me all the time. And two, somebody somewhere is going to be offended or unhappy about it for some reason. And if you run around trying to think of this poor woman who doesn't want you to use the word hate because the concept of hate is terrible in any way, like, you have to kind of balance that out. This one person versus the enormous readership that my weird school has, and they're all enjoying it.
Yeah. I'd say that 99% of the feedback I get is positive. Just people telling me how the books have turned their kids on to reading, and you have to put more weight into that feedback than the very occasional critiques you get from people who just get angry at anything.
My child was killed by an Alexa machine, and now I can't stand looking at the cover of your book with an Alexa-like machine on it.
Right.
For that one person, no, this probably won't be the book for you.
Some people are just looking for a reason to get angry, you know?
That's true also. And I think that's part of something that social media has inflicted on us, among other things, is that constant raising of, was it serotonin? Some chemical in your brain that gets excited when you get to hate. And you need your 2 minutes hate. And if you haven't had any hate all morning, it's time to start scrolling and find something to hate.
And it's so easy to just write some comments, some angry comment, and you're anonymous. Nobody knows who you are. And then I think it probably maybe transfers to your real life when you in the real world, you see something that bothers you, and you just, instead of, censoring yourself or just taking it with a grain of salt, you just shout out and express your anger. I don't know. It's a weird world we live in.
It is. And it's, I don't know, like, compared to times of bubonic plague, I'll take this. It's overall getting